Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm Steve Lance. President Biden finally announcing his re-election campaign on the 4th anniversary of his 2020 announcement. How other 2024 contenders react as primary debates draw controversy. NTD's Iris Tao brings us more from the White House.
It's official. After months of hinting, President Biden formally announces his 2024 re-election bid in a Tuesday video. He says he wants to finish the job. Watch.
The question we're facing is whether in the years ahead we have more freedom or less freedom, more rights or fewer. Let's finish this job. I know we can.
In the video, Biden echoes his 2020 campaign message of uniting the country, but also takes aim at what he calls MAGA Republicans.
Around the country, MAGA extremists are lining up to take on those bedrock freedoms.
The Republican 2024 hopefuls are firing back. In a Tuesday statement, former President Trump says, quote, "It's almost inconceivable that Biden would even think of running for re-election." Trump cites Biden's record on inflation, Afghanistan response, and his surge of illegal immigrants. And another GOP contender, Vivek Ramaswamy, outright calls Biden's re-election bid elder abuse.
And the only thing I can say is watch me.
Biden's been dismissing concerns about his age, but a recent NBC poll finds just 26% of Americans think Biden, who's turning 81, should run for a second term. All of this as controversies are growing over primary debates. And Trump on Tuesday suggested that he may skip GOP's primary debates, citing media bias against him and his already commanding lead in the polls. And Democrats, meanwhile, announced this week that they would not hold any primary debates this year as the incumbent president is running for re-election. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis warning about the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. Speaking to Fox News while on an international trade mission to Japan, the governor is also laying out a strategy on how to counter Chinese influence. Here's a look.
We cannot allow the CCP to produce every critical part of our economy. We rely on them for almost everything. We need to bring that back to America so we're producing it here in the United States and we're not at the whim of the communist Chinese. I'm going to be signing legislation very soon eliminating the possibility of CCP land purchases in Florida.
DeSantis referred to Chinese nationals who are buying American farmland, often strategically located close to American military bases. He was also asked about how to deal with a possible Chinese invasion into Taiwan. According to DeSantis, Chinese leader Xi Jinping responds to strength. DeSantis saying President Biden appears weak on the world stage, which allows China to expand its global power. House lawmakers returning to Capitol Hill today. The GOP is preparing for a vote this week to raise the debt by $1.5 trillion while cutting funds from Democrats' key priorities. NTD's Melina Wisecup is covering the details from Capitol Hill. So, Melina, what's the consensus around this GOP plan as of this evening?
It has been interesting to observe the dynamics of how Republicans are responding to this bill. As of right now, it's still unclear whether or not leadership has the 218 votes needed in order to pass this bill. Remember, Republicans are working with a very slim majority, so they cannot afford to lose any more than 4 votes if they do want to get this bill passed this week. And we heard from the lead sponsor of this bill, Congressman Jody Arrington, as he was walking into a meeting earlier today, and he would not comment on whether or not they have secured enough Republican support to pass the bill this week. Now, just to recap briefly what this bill is, it actually cuts spending from Democrats' key priorities in exchange for raising the nation's $31 trillion debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion. But Congressman Andy Biggs tells us he doesn't believe that Congress would even need to raise the nation's debt if Republicans were to fight for steeper spending cuts. Here's what the congressman told me about why he's leaning towards a no vote on this bill. Take a look.
I disagree with that premise that we have to raise the debt. What I would be doing is I would be looking to find a way to get our spending level back to the 2019 level, which, by the way, strangely enough, is right around where our revenue level is. The Republican plan will give you a $47.5 to $48 trillion national debt. The problem is is just the speed that you're going off the cliff. You're still going off the cliff.
And remember, Congressman Andy Biggs actually led a group of Republicans in opposing Speaker McCarthy from taking the gavel earlier this year. He says he's not planning to do the same here and whip no votes, but he says he is explaining to other lawmakers why he's voting no, which could lead some of his closest allies to do the same. And it's no surprise that Democrats are opposing this bill because it does strip funding from their key priorities, like taking money away from Biden's student loan forgiveness program, repealing that money that was recently granted to the IRS. President Biden today saying that he plans to veto the bill, saying that it's a reckless attempt to extract extreme concessions as a condition for the United States simply paying the bills it has already incurred. And with this veto threat now coming from the White House, coupled with the Democrat-controlled Senate, this House bill that Republicans are pushing right now mainly serves as an opening proposal for trying to pressure the White House into negotiating with them for some spending cuts in exchange for raising this debt cap. But the two sides are still far apart on reaching a solution that must be met by the summer to avoid an economic catastrophe. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Thanks for that, Melina. And sticking with the topic of the debt ceiling, I just had a chance to sit down with Republican Congressman Rich McCormick to speak about the debt limit and what Biden's expected veto might mean for the country. Congressman Rich McCormick, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here with you today.
Congressman, I want to ask you about the debt ceiling. If you could, the Republicans seem to have a plan. How far along are you? And tell us about what the plan actually is.
Interesting. When we started whipping this, I was actually against it. I didn't think it was enough. It took a while for me to get on board because I wanted to meet with a bunch of people, get a lot of people's feedback. People who've been here, done that, see different aspects of the same political party. And when I came to the table, I'm part of the RSC. I'm a voting member. And when I met with a bunch of people, about half of them are on Freedom Caucus, and they told me that I was being unrealistic and too rigid, which I thought was really weird to be on the right of the Freedom Caucus, and told I wasn't being reasonable because I really didn't have the experience that they have as far as what's realistic. And here's the deal. You can ask for anything. And my whole premise was we don't want to negotiate against ourselves. Why come to the table with something that's already been negotiated inside of our party? I feel like we're actually debating against ourselves, and we're already coming to the table with a compromise. And then once you go to the next level to debate either the Senate or the presidency, you can have another compromise, and we're going to lose what we're going for. But the way they put it basically is that, first of all, this is the most substantial cuts we've seen, the most substantial, far-looking control of both the budget and the deficit we've had probably in about a couple decades. I hadn't really looked at it that way. The savings, just even over the short term, about $3.6 trillion. The specifics on grabbing back unspent COVID money and grabbing back the money that we were going to spend on IRS agents and grabbing back the money that was out there for multiple programs that should be cut is significant. And it does put us on a trajectory to control the budget in a fiscally responsible way that only allows 1% growth per year, and also grabs back it rolls back the old budget and actually goes back to 2022 to start with. So it does have some really good built-in safeguards. The question is, when we pass it, what is the Senate and the president going to do? I know he's threatened to veto it, which means he's not willing to have a conversation about this at all. But let me place the blame squarely where it belongs, on everybody. If we haven't done anything about this for 2 decades, we should have seen it coming. The problem with Congress is a lot of time, or anybody in politics, is we are reactionary instead of visionary. We're not doing things proactively. And really until it becomes such a consequential problem that we can't ignore it anymore, then we finally do something about it. We had both a Republican Congress, Senate, and presidency where we still had $1 trillion deficit spending during one of the best economies we've ever had in the world. We've also had one of the worst budgets pushed through by a Democrat, House, Senate, and presidency during a very critical time where we couldn't afford to have $6 trillion of extra spending. And yet we did it anyways, and we're suffering the consequences right now. So both parties are really responsible for this mess, but we better take it seriously. This is the best time to do it. When you have a Democrat president and a Republican House is usually when you take care of the deficit and when you actually get serious about consequential controls of the budget.
It's an excellent point. And, as you mentioned, if it does get to the point where it passes the House and then gets to the Senate, if it does pass the Senate, that will mean that it was likely because of bipartisan support for it. The president saying today that he would veto this bill. What type of message do you think that sent?
Well, this is from a president who has, what, about a third popularity? He's about, what, around 33%. He's in trouble anyways. If he wants to play the bad guy, if he wants to freeze up the government, then that's on him. We've done our part. I cannot force the president. Nobody can force the president to do the right thing. He was going to also veto the bill on crime here in D.C. That was his threat originally, too. And they realized, I'm on the wrong side of history. But he's on the wrong side of history again. Does he really want his generational debt to be on each born child in the United States right now is about $2 million, by the way. You're born with $2 million of debt to pay per child. Do you really want to put us in a position where we'll never recover, where you literally ruin the United States' place in the world, where the greenback is no longer the standard of the world? Do you really want to see us go the way that so many other empires have gone because we did the wrong thing, because we wanted to buy votes with somebody else's money? Because that's where he's at right now. He literally wants to take our money and give it away so he can buy votes, whether it be from college students who don't want to pay their debt, or for people who have been, whatever reason, have not paid their bills and have poor credit and can't pay down their down payments, and you want to give them money from people who have actually done the right thing and sacrificed, scrimped, not gone to dinner, not done things that are frivolous, and saved up their money so they can make a down payment on a house and have a good credit score, and punish them to reward the people who have not done the responsible thing at a time where we've seen our economy go into great decline and going to fly in the face of every economic standard we had in the past, every financial standard we had in the past. This is bad timing for him, and I think he's going to be exposed for who he really is, which is somebody who's basically trying to do something age-old, what every communist government does, which is take everybody's money and buy votes with it.
Congressman Rich McCormick, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Washington, D.C. continuing to react to Tucker Carlson's exit from Fox News. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now fundraising off of the news. Ocasio-Cortez's team sent out a message to supporters. It said that the former Fox News host spent years, quote, targeting women, people of color, and the LGBTQ+ community. The Congresswoman also said Carlson leaving Fox News is a positive development and asked supporters for donations to, quote, fight hate speech. Her team wrote in the message, quote, there's still a lot of work to do to fight the right-wing disinformation machine that constantly makes Alexandria their target. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.